Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is our regular meeting of the City of Southfield for April 4th, 2022 at 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Banks. Present. Brightwell.
Here.
Cruz.
Present.
Frazier.
Here.
Hoskins.
Here.
Mandelbaum.
Present.
Taylor.
Here.
Madam President, you do have a quorum this evening.
Thank you. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next, we will have our communications. The City of Southfield City Council has established the following rules of procedure for all speakers. No speaker may make personal or impertinent attacks upon any officer, employee, or city council member or elected official that is unrelated to the manner in which the officer, employee, or city council member or elected official performs his or her duties. No person shall use abusive or threatening language toward any individual when addressing the city council. Any person who violates this section shall be directed by the presiding officer to be orderly and silent. If a person addressing the council refuses to become silent when so directed, such person may be deemed by the presiding officer to have committed a breach of the peace by disrupting and impeding the orderly conduct of the public meeting of the City Council, and may be ordered by the presiding officer to leave the meeting. If the person refuses to leave as directed, the presiding officer may direct any law enforcement officer who is present to escort the violator from the meeting. Thank you for your attention. Our first person to speak under communications is Mr. Gregory Keeler.
Greg Keeler, Southfield resident. I do not understand how you adopted March 22nd as National World Water Day, when water and sanitation go hand in hand. On July 8, 2018, sanitation sewer line potential evaluation, the City of Southfield placed costs before public health. Now, before public health. Now, in 1999, the City of Southfield bonded for $38 billion to install sanitary sewer lines, where none previously exist. I missed the exception of if it costs too much, you will not put it in. I missed the exception that if data says this or that, you will not put it in. That same year, the Detroit Free Press had an ad, April 25th, 2019, 3 months prior to your meeting. Contamination is Michigan's biggest environmental crisis in 40 years. But yet 3 months later, you're saying, okay, there's no problem with us not having sewer lines. And you're contaminating water. If water and sewer go hand in hand, you can't disallow sewage and expect the water to be okay. We're going to have a problem. When this project was started, sanitation, if you do not take care of it, it will kill people. it has a health impact. You had somebody here speaking to you from your departments, telling you how bad it is. Our beaches are closed down because of the sanitation. In 2013, you could not fish or eat fish coming out of the Rouge River or the Flint River. But that same year, we had the fishing derby at Carpenter Lake. Carpenter Lake is only a result of the Rouge River being dammed up. So with this new federal infrastructure money coming in, I hope somehow y'all figure out a way to gear it towards the places where we don't have sanitation and put it in there. Otherwise, your adoption of World Water Day makes absolutely, positively no sense.
Thank you, Mr. Keeler. Next, we have Ms. Stacy Jackson.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Stacy Jackson, Southfield resident. I am truly happy to see all of you. It is my first council meeting since COVID, and I am delighted and pleased to see that all of you are still with us in here. The first comment that I would like to make is that I did get an opportunity to attend the city's State of the City address, and they were all very impressive. But I did have a few comments. For one, just curious in regards to the John Grace development on why there aren't more accessibility or units that are going to be designed for the disabled, seeing that it is a senior community. Most senior communities develop all of their units to be accessible so that in the event one of their existing residents does develop a disability, they don't have to be displaced. I would like to see more disability or accessibility units at that development. The other, on behalf of Beechwood Acres Homeowners Association, I would like to thank this council and the city for not installing an amphitheater at Beechwood Rec. So thank you to the mayor and those 3 council people that came out to speak to what seemed to be 100 people out there about that development. So thank you on behalf of us on that. The next thing I would like to do is to piggyback my fellow resident in regards to sewage and septic. Back in 2016, this council and many of those who had different positions at that time did meet with thousands of residents that were connected or had septic tank situations. And they were promised that someone in this collective body would do some type of research to develop and secure grant funding to help those residents with connections. Given that the nation has this huge infrastructure and that there's so much money coming into various cities, I'm concerned on whether or not the city is looking collectively at using some of that to, yes, install sewer lines at a community that's been asking for it for about 20 years now. I'm also concerned on what's being done to connect these residents. We know that with seniors, aging in place, statistically, is the most economical way for our seniors. What's being done to help keep these seniors in place at home as they age? And lastly, I would love to know what the city's outlook is economically. What's our forecast? Because right now, you know, vehicles that at one time you could fill up for $50 is costing you $100 to fill up. Groceries, foods, medications, all of those things. So what's being done about that? So if there's anyone that could help get this information out to the communities, particularly about the sewer lines and the septic tanks, given that it was there 4 years before COVID, and now these residents are looking into it, it'd be nice to know. Also, I do know that at one point, I believe it was the city manager that mentioned that in 2019, or 2009 rather, there was somewhat of a silent moratorium. I ask that we do that now because many residents in our community are still waitlisted to have these companies come out to view their homes, and it's been over a year. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Keith Harris.
How all of you doing today? I'm glad to see you. Keith Harris, a resident of Southfield. I spoke to the mayor about a safety and security conference with all of our association presidents. We've been having speeding traffic through the communities. We've been seeing burnouts on streets, on big streets where the guys are spinning, doing donuts in the middle of the main streets here in Southfield. But more than anything, I like to say our police department has been doing a great job, our fire department. But we have to do a better job of protecting those who protect us. You know, I brought something here for each one of y'all. I want y'all to take a look at this, where one home that had more than 60 police runs to it. 60. Now, I got copies of the 911 runs to this home. They also had a mysterious fire on one of their vehicles. And the vehicle was still sitting in the, in the business parking lot. You know, enough is enough with this kind of nonsense, going on in the community. Eventually, I did some put some FBI statistics in here, and we just had 2 police officers killed on a home in New York where they went to a frequent house that had similar problems to this. Both officers died, 23 and 27. These runs cost the taxpayers a lot of money. Every time, but 60 runs? That's ridiculous. Most communities don't see that kind of activity in their community. I mean, we don't see that kind of activity in our community, and we've been living there 17 years. And I want you guys to read the police report. I want you to take a good look at the picture of the roll panel truck that was unrunning. You tell me how an unrunning vehicle in and out the shop mysteriously catch on fire early in the morning. This is ridiculous. I'm not going to waste you guys' time with a lot of talk, but I will like to say, I feel safer in this community in Southfield now than I ever felt under Chief Barron. I'm talking about, and that's with our police officers, because he got police officers policing one another, but we have to police one another as a community. We can't have our police officers showing up to this kind of situation and possibly lose one of our first responders on just blatant idiocy. We must protect them the way they protecting us. I hope each one of y'all take a look at these pictures and read each one of these, reports. That's just one entrance.
Thank you, Mr. Harris.
Okay, thank you.
That will conclude our communications for this evening. We have no presentations. Next, we have appointments. Mayor Seibert.
Good evening, Council. This evening I bring before you, and you have their background information, 2 recommended appointments for the Southfield Planning Commission. One would fill the position of Jackie Mia, who we acknowledged had passed away recently. And the other is longtime excellent planning commissioner, served the city well, and he's moving on to a new chapter in his life, and that's Donald Culpepper. So we have 2 vacancies, one immediate and one at the end of the month. So I am recommending Cynthia Bernuti, and if she's in the audience tonight, I don't see her. Or Ghana Goodwin Dye. Ghana, you want to come on up? I'm recommending these 2 appointees for the Planning Commission. Ms. Dye, I'm told by the clerk, cannot be sworn in until 10 days prior to her actual service date. but I would like to ask the council to approve both of these appointments this evening.
Okay. Council?
Madam Chair, I move that we approve the two appointments to the Planning Commission.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilwoman Banks, to approve the appointments to the Planning Commission of both Ms. Cynthia Bernardi and Ms. Ghana Adele Goodwin-Dye. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, thank you, council.
Did you want to say anything, or can she,
Make an
can,
appointment with the clerk.
can she speak if you would, if she wanted to say something to us? I know it's the end of the month that you'll take your seat, but you're here now if you'd like.
Thank you. I appreciate you supporting my nomination, and I look forward to working with everyone, especially those on the Planning Committee. It's a great opportunity for me to get to learn all of our ordinances and the opportunity to learn more about the planning of our city and making it even better than what it is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, council, we have 4 sets of minutes.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move the approval of our regular meeting minutes of February 28th, March 7th, March 14th, and March 21st.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Cruz, for the approval of our regular meeting minutes of February 28th, 2022, our regular meeting minutes of March 7th, 2022, our regular meeting minutes of March 14th of 2022, and our regular meeting minutes of March 21st, 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next, we have our consent agenda.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
No. Did you want to announce something? I'd like to move that we approve consent agenda items A and B.
Support.
Madam Chair, before we move forward, I want to pull this briefly, item A.
Okay, because it wasn't supported. Can we pull,
I did support, but I think he got in just before I did, so.
so can we do a point of order, and you can tell me how we're supposed to do this?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I'm sorry. Dan,
Councilman Brown.
Councilman Brightwell wants us to pull item A, but we had a motion on the floor.
Should do that first.
Yeah, we could discuss the motion.
Right, so he made a motion. A motion was made, it hadn't been seconded and hadn't been supported, so then we'll just discuss. I mean, he's pulling it, and I don't know if there was a motion for consent agenda B. I mean, letter B. Had one been made?
Just A,
Just
A only.
No, what happened was we had a motion for A and B, but it was not, second came in right at the time that Councilman Brightwell asked for item A to be pulled. So it was like, it didn't happen.
Right, it didn't happen, so at this point, then we could go into discussion, and then he could bring the motion back.
Okay, so we can pull item A,
Pull
and
item
we
A.
can vote on item B.
Correct.
Thank you very much for that clarification. So,
Do we need an amended motion?
yes, please.
I'd like to move that we approve consent agenda item B.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Cruz, for the approval of item B, which is the reimbursement agreement with the Road Commission for Oakland County for 2022 season street sweeping service performed by the city on county roads. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Councilman Brightwell, you asked for item A to be pulled?
The only reason I'm doing this is for notification, because it's been a concern of mine is that we are not keeping track of contracts that are expiring. And this thing expired in January of 2022, and on a going forward basis, on the Finance Committee, we will be trying to set up a mechanism within the city where there's a tickler that tells us 90 days or more when a contract is expiring. And it just bothers me that for the last few months, we've been voting on contracts that have expired. And I know that from a business standpoint, a vendor can literally hold you hostage and or abuse the paying authority simply because we're under the gun to get something done from a contract standpoint. I only bring this up because I didn't want to kill this. I'm not going to kill it, but I just want to, and I will be saying something about anything that comes up in the future that has been past due and or we did not have an appropriate tickler to let us know that this is expiring. So the Finance Committee, we'll be working on this, and we're going to make sure that we can get a minimum of 90-day advance notice to the appropriate authorities in the city that a contract is expiring, and the council will be voting on it before the item expire, and definitely not 4 or 5 months after it has expired. And that's all I have to say, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Would you like to make a motion?
And if you like for me to, I move that we approve consent agenda item A, resolution for governmental bodies performance and identification for the Michigan Department of Transportation.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilwoman Banks, for the approval of the resolution for governmental bodies performance and indemnification for the Michigan Department of Transportation. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next, we go to our agenda items for discussion and action. Our first one is scheduling of the public hearing for our single lot assessment, special assessment roll.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Before you tonight, I have a resolution to schedule a public hearing in affirmation of the single lot special assessment rule. Section 1.13 of the City Ordinance Code mandates the procedure for assessing certain costs incurred by the city for services or required fees assessed by each department. When these costs are not paid, they should become a lien on the property and are required to be placed on the summer tax bill for collection. These costs include single lot SAD loans for sewer and contractor services and tree removal, property transfer affidavit fines for property transfer affidavits that remain unfiled for commercial and industrial properties, the CCAB special assessments for improvements to the city center, street lighting fee delinquencies, corrective actions from code enforcement that include litter, noxious weeds, maintenance and code violations, community participation fees from abatement agreements, return check fees from the treasurer's office, sewer and tap permits, and police false alarms for properties. The current single lot special assessment roll totals $198,173.12. The amounts and totals for each item will be provided to the council prior to the meeting and are currently on file with the city clerk. Notices have also been mailed to the property owners. I ask that you approve the resolution and schedule the public hearing for the regular city council meeting of April 25th, 2022, where the single lot special assessment rule will be confirmed. I can take any questions.
Thank you. Council, does anyone have any questions? Okay, seeing none,
Madam Chair,
yes.
I'd like to move that we approve and schedule a public hearing for the regular meeting of April 25th, 2022, for the purpose of confirming the single lot special assessment roll in accordance with Section 1.13 of the city's Code of Ordinances.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilwoman Banks, for the approval to schedule a public hearing for the single lot assessment roll for our regular meeting on April 25th, 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thanks.
Next, we have the authorization to purchase engine repair for Reserve Fire Engine Number 5 for the Fire Department.
Fire Chief Johnny Menifee. Good evening, Madam President, Council, Mayor, City Administrator, residents and visitors of the City of Southfield. So I stand before you to seek authorization to purchase an engine repair for Reserve Fire Engine Number 5. This currently is a 2009 fire engine, has 167,000 miles on it. It was sent out to Cummings Sales and Service of New Hudson, Michigan for white smoke coming from the exhaust. Cummings has diagnosed this as a total engine failure and that a total overhaul of the engine needs to be completed. We did not go out for bid for this repair due to that we'd have to reassemble the engine, have it towed to another facility, and it would incur additional charges of approximately $2,000. The cost of this repair for the reserve engine is $28,097.64. The funds would be coming from the FY 21-22 Fire Department Apparatus Repair and Maintenance account. And based on the information from the Fire Department mechanics, DPW mechanics, we're requesting authorization to allow Cummings Sales and Service of New Hudson, Michigan to perform the service of repairing this fire engine. The estimated time is about a week once the parts come into the dealer.
Thank you. Council, are there any questions?
I have,
Councilman Brightwell?
okay. Chief, how many vehicles do we have in reserve?
We have 3 fire engines, 3 EMS vehicles in reserve. The life cycle of this vehicle, I'm anticipating another 9 years.
Okay. What type warranty will we get once this vehicle is repaired?
Currently, this manufacturer provides the best warranty, and it's a year on parts and a year on labor.
Okay. And as you might have mentioned it during your speaking, did you indicate when we purchased this vehicle? When did this vehicle first go into service?
It was a 2009.
Okay.
For NFPA recommendations, it should be a front line for 10 years and then a backup for additional 5.
Okay.
Just from the experience I've been experiencing with the vehicles and now with the engines, they're expecting them to last only 100,000 miles, and this current vehicle has over 167,000 miles on it.
Yeah, that was my next question. What was is this mileage good mileage, or is it mileage that this vehicle has been used excessively?
Well, I mean, it's been, I would say, the normal year we've been putting on a vehicle, but the dealer was surprised that we were able to get 167,000 miles out of it without having a repair on it.
Okay, so you're saying we will get an additional mileage or years out of this vehicle once this repair is done?
Yes, it's a complete engine overhaul. Yes, I'm expecting this vehicle to be our reserve engine for another, like I said, another 8 to 9 years.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Councilwoman Banks?
My questions were answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Any others? Councilman Frazier?
Yes, a couple of weeks ago, we approved some new engines, and you had some that were going to be in reserve. Is this one of the ones that was already in reserve that was going to take the place of the ones that we purchased, that we authorized purchasing, or how did this fit into the whole scheme?
That's correct. So the new ones are 2019s, and when those were put into service, we took the 3 best units and made them our reserve vehicles, and this is one of those vehicles.
This is? The second question is, do we still do our maintenance on our other vehicles here in the city?
Yes, we do we do the routine maintenance, oil changes, brakes. within the fire department has 3 mechanics. And then for additional work, we send it over to DPW, the Roundhouse. And then sometimes, because of how intensive the work is, we have to send it out to different manufacturers to get that work fixed. And that's with this. To get this engine repaired, we're sending it out. The recommendation is to send it out to get it repaired from another facility.
Okay, now, you're dealing with a bunch of people that don't repair automobiles anymore. You know, we may have done it when thought we knew what we were talking about when we were teenagers, but we don't do it anymore. But we do have mechanics. Is this a reasonable price for what we're asking for to rebuild an engine for 28 grand or whatever it is?
Yes, sir. Actually, this is a total rebuild of that current engine. An aftermarket engine now is $50,000. So yes, this is in the normal prices, but the prices have gone up in the last 18 months, over 21% for these type of repairs.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Thank you. All right, council, seeing no other questions? Are we prepared?
Madam
to vote?
Chair,
Yes.
I move that we approve the authorization to purchase engine repair for Reserve Fire Engine 5 for the fire department.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Mandelbaum for the approval to authorize the purchase of the engine repair for Reserve Fire Engine number 5 for the fire department. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next item is the approval of agreement for rehabilitation of Berg Road from 8 Mile Road to Simmons Road.
Good evening, Council.
Hi, Lee.
So MDOT has presented these contract documents for Berg Road. This is an asphalt rehabilitation project for all of Berg from 8 Mile to Simmons. This is a 2.74 mile stretch of road. This project gaps out the 9 Mile and 10 Mile intersections, but it does include the Civic Center intersection, which is part of the asphalt rehabilitation, and then we're doing all of the ADA ramp upgrades at that intersection as well. The other 2 intersections have been completed with previous city and county projects. The project includes a new 5-foot wide concrete sidewalk on the west side of Berg from 10 Mile and meets up to the existing sidewalk in front of the Chaldean Catholic Church. There is existing pathway on the east side of Berg in this stretch that serves the Berg Point subdivision. But this sidewalk on the west side was where we had a pedestrian fatality a few years back and can serve the apartments. There's Trowbridge and the Chaldean Manor apartments that are to the north there, so it'll be good connectivity for those residents that are on the west side to come down to 10 Mile and head over to our commercial district over on 10 Mile and Telegraph. The project also includes some preventative maintenance work on the Berg Road Bridge, which is over the Evans branch of the Rouge River, just north of 8 Mile. And predominantly because of that bridge work, the traffic controls for this project include a full closure at 8 Mile Road. So all the properties between 8 Mile and 9 Mile will be accessed from 9 Mile Road. The contractor will maintain that 2-way traffic so all the residents can get to their homes. Then from 9 Mile all the way up to Simmons, there will only be 1 lane available throughout construction, 1 lane southbound while we're working on the northbound side of the road. And then we'll flip that and maintain 1 lane northbound as we work on the southbound side of the road. The project is expected to last the full construction season. They should be well under construction starting in June, and this is expected to last all the way through November. The financials, our total project cost estimate is at $5.5 million. We have substantial federal aid here and some state local bridge funds totaling $3,676,066, resulting in Southfield's share at $1,833,309. Our portion comes from the Road Bond Construction Fund. And so we're asking this evening for your body to approve this project by adopting the attached resolution, which authorizes the mayor and city clerk to sign the agreement on behalf of the city and then provides the subsequent funding.
Thank you. Councilman Mandelbaum?
Thank you. Lee, as it relates to the Berg Road from 8 Mile to Simmons, am I reading this correctly that there's 1.1 million in contingencies and construction engineering?
So what we have historically done is program 10% contingencies to the construction and 15% for construction engineering. So together, 25%, and that has been standard.
How often do we hit that 25%?
Well, the 15% for the construction engineering, these MDOT projects are very heavy with paperwork, so we're probably getting pretty close to that 15% on most of our projects. That can have some dependency on the contractor. Some contractors require more effort on our field team's part compared to others. The contingencies, it is not often that we reach a 10% contingency on a project. There's always some type of additional cost. I shouldn't say always, but frequently there are some unknowns that come to light during construction, and that gives us the flexibility to have that additional work done without having to come back to council throughout the project.
Okay, thank you. And then the other question I have is with the 5-foot concrete sidewalk. It's only going to be on the west side of the road. How do people get to the east side?
So the east side has an existing pathway, and that is adjacent to the neighborhood that's right there, the Berg Point subdivision. So we do have that pathway on the one side, but even with that pathway in one point, we did have a pedestrian that was hit because they were walking on the shoulder on the opposite side of the road, probably because they came from the west side of the road, and pedestrians really won't travel too far out of their path from point A to point B to get where they're going. So this will be a nice safety improvement to this area.
So will there, even though there's existing sidewalk on the east side, will they connect with the ADA ramps to the west side?
Only at the major intersections. So at 10 Mile, there's an ADA crossing already that crosses Berg Road, and at Civic Center as well.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilman Brightwell?
Lee, what is the plan for educating the community about the closure?
So I do work with community relations to get the word out to everyone. We will host a public meeting before the start of construction for all the neighbors that live immediately adjacent to the project area. We'll hold that here in council chambers, so we have the space to let people social distance. And then between community relations and cable, we just try and get the word out. There is, of course, advanced construction signing, everywhere as you approach the construction zone. Lasser Road is going to be used as the posted detour route.
Okay. If this is approved, what is the planned start of construction date?
I'm sorry.
If this is approved, what is the planned start of construction?
We expect to be under construction in June.
June. So the community will be being notified starting in May?
Yes.
Or April? Okay, in May, okay.
Right. We'll do direct mailing to the residents in the affected area 2 to 3 weeks before construction starts.
Okay. The other question is that this was prompted by another question. And I do recall you or someone provided us with a report of contingency dollars that were not used. Mm-hmm. Is that you would normally do that annually at the end of the year? Or somebody?
Yeah, there have been different times. It hasn't been on a very regular basis that we've come before council and kind of give a true up to where we are with our road funding spending. Overall, our percentage is very low for going over and using those contingencies.
Right.
So in some cases, we've actually come in under the construction amount, again, because of unforeseen field conditions, and that's always a plus to be able to come in below construction. That doesn't happen too often.
Yeah, I'm trying to recall the last report I recall seeing. We did not spend all the dollars that were allocated to contingency, so that's my point. And so you provide that once a year, once every 2 years, or whenever Mr. Zoen wants it?
Yeah, it's typically once a year or less is when we compile that information and bring it back to council.
Okay, okay then. Very good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilwoman Banks?
Thank you. Lee, you said that it was there was only gonna be one lane available, so I'm assuming traffic can only go one way.
That's correct, between Simmons all the way down to 9 Mile.
Okay, so how are we going to handle the traffic on Sunday with the large church that is there? There are a lot of cars that come there, and have we thought about reaching out to that congregation?
We haven't specifically reached out to them at this point. I'm sure there will be some more contacts made, and we'd like to, with some of the bigger churches or commercial properties or anything, kind of get an email going where we can give them special updates of changes during construction. The contractors are generally not working on Sundays. The traffic controls do stay in place, but it does help that there's not construction going on. It keeps things moving, but it's going to, be busy at those times. The church up closer to Civic Center, we do have an additional lane up by Civic Center. So when you're getting close to the intersection, it's going to open up a little bit more and move the traffic a little better there.
Okay, well, I'd like to suggest that someone reach out to the church. They do have a lot of events, picnics. There's a lot of activity at that location, not only on Sundays.
Okay.
Funerals during the week, and I really think that someone needs to let them know about this, and we need to also educate their congregation. I'm happy to see that a new southwest sidewalk will be added to Councilman Mandelbaum. There presently is a sidewalk on that side of the street from Simmons to the Chaldean Church, and then it stops. So what has happened is they're supposed to, I guess, cross over Berg Road, but this will be a continuation. So there is a sidewalk, but it's not all the way to 10 Mile Road. 9 Mile and Berg Road. There's a similar situation with the sidewalk. I'm really bad with footage, but maybe from door to door, right before 9 Mile, there's no sidewalk. And if you are riding a bicycle or walking, you have to go into the street, and the street kind of curves. So is there any way we can look to see if we can add a sidewalk there? I'm just waiting for an accident to happen one day there.
Well, most of Berg Road does not have sidewalk. I will take a look at what's going on at 9 Mile to see if there was a gap that
There's
we're missing.
There's a sidewalk from Simmons all the way from Simmons on Berg Road all the way to just before 9 Mile, then it stops. Right before that little roundabout. It's a straight sidewalk. So if we could check that, please, because it just doesn't make sense to leave that space open. And then, because we're going to have a brand-new road and a nice partial sidewalk on the southwest portion between 9 Mile and the Chaldean Church, is there anything we can do, or is there any funding in the city to fix the sidewalks or the bike paths that are presently there? They're really not in good shape. You've got areas where the sections are, separated this much. It's crumbling.
So for the
I think
piece-
several people have been out there and they agree that it's bad. So I don't understand why we're addressing this also at that time. We're going to have a nice road, but you've got terrible sidewalks and bike paths.
So generally, sidewalks are a responsibility of the adjacent property owners. But for the portion where there is some existing 8-foot asphalt bike path, this project did go to bid on Friday, and the bid prices came in good, very close to estimate, just less than 1% over the construction estimate, which is good. Because so much is changing, and what you hear of there being so much work out there, we've been very cautious about our cost estimates and what this economy could be doing to our prices. So we were glad to see that. That gives us a little bit of wiggle room with these contingencies. And for the bike path portions, which the city typically maintains ourselves, we will review that for that stretch. It's almost a half mile of bike path there south of Civic Center on the east side that is worth reviewing, because that's an asphalt pathway. The road is going to be asphalt, so it might lend itself nicely that we could ask the contractor for a price for rehabbing that existing path.
But it's also north, like in front of, and I've reported these locations many times, like in front of Village House Drive, Village House, is it condominiums? Yeah, Village House condominiums. There's several areas where the roots of the tree is just coming right through the sidewalk. So if you're walking, and I have seen seniors fall there, and I'd like to know what we can do, like I said, to improve the sidewalk from 9 Mile to Simmons, and even look at if there is one on 8 Mile. And
Some of those may be code enforcement action that the code department can take when it's property owner responsibility.
Okay, so I think I'm not getting my question answered. What can we do to fix the sidewalks from 8 Mile Road to Simmons? City staff has been out there. We keep talking, we are not doing. We're putting a brand-new road in. There's going to be several areas where there's going to be a new bike path. What can we do to fix the sidewalks? We talk about walkability. We talk about riding bicycles. There are 2 senior complexes there. If we want people to get out and about, we want them to be safe. So what is it going to take, or what can we do to address this issue?
For private property responsibility, I can ask that code goes out. It would probably be best if they came out after our project so that we aren't tripping over contractors. If it's something that's city responsibility, especially now that we know that our bid prices came in good, that's definitely something that we can review in the field and make that decision and based on funding, and see if we have existing bid items for those items or if the contractor is going to be reasonable. Generally, that type of work is expensive to have done through an MDOT-let contract. But if we already have some bid prices because we're putting in some 5-foot concrete sidewalk, then this might be a good time to do it, and I'll absolutely look at that.
Do we have any money in our sidewalk fund that maybe can also be allocated? And if it is the homeowner's responsibility, I guess in the last year, why hasn't anyone been out to the homeowners to address this issue?
Madam President, the administration can take a look at this issue. This is going to come down to money, whose obligation it is
Is
to
your
pay.
microphone on?
Pardon?
Is your microphone on?
The light's on green. The administration is happy to look into this item. It will come down to money. Code has been out, and I don't have the notes with me, but we've started the last 2 years a more aggressive approach in different sections of the city. We may not have been in this section of the city, simply we knew 2 years ago that Berg Road had scored high enough in the funding process. The federal funds typically do not cover the sidewalk. We will take a look at this. And I know we've got sidewalk on the west side, 10 Mile, up to Simmons, and from Simmons south, but I'm not sure if there's sidewalk on Berg between 8 and 9. I'm almost certain there's not, but we'll take a look at that. And this may be one of those sectional exercises. If you look at what you've accomplished in paths and sidewalks the last few years, it has been incrementally. We are making a substantial investment along 9 Mile, just to the east of Berg, Evergreen, and then 9 to Cornell. But we can take a look at this. You know, this will come down to funding. I do know there are a couple sections on the east side that need to be repaired because of trees, and I shot photos of 2 different locations on last week. And if we can just come back to you within 2 weeks. This comes down to trading off priorities, speed bumps versus sidewalks, improvement of neighborhood streets. The resources are finite. And we being staff, we'd love to do more, but it's going to come down to money.
Oh, okay, thank you. But whoever wants to walk it with me, I'd be more than happy to put on your gym shoes and let's go for a walk. And I think, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Because I thought we had a sidewalk fund somewhere, and every year there was a little bit of, we were going to be addressing certain areas.
We have the Metro Act funds where monies can be spent in right-of-ways. We have successfully used those monies. In the past, the sidewalk fund was used, basically using our local 1 mil tax to pay for sidewalks that were the city's responsibility when we were in neighborhoods making repairs and repairs. In other words, if it was a city tree that damaged the sidewalk, those are the monies we were using. But the Metro Act funds we've used to pay for a lot of the pathways. And I will tell you, every time there's a road project, my engineering staff will say, geez, we'd like to use some of those Metro funds to help pay for some of our road improvements as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Frazier?
Yes. When you either add sidewalk or repair sidewalk, are there any trees involved in that you have to remove?
The Berg Road project has some minimal tree removals that are part of the project, and they are for that new segment of sidewalk on the west side of Berg, north of 10 Mile. That's the section where there's some existing trees. If you can picture that part of Berg, it looks like there's a lot of green space there because that's just the rear of the properties, the commercial properties, that front on Telegraph Road. So it's not in anyone's front yard, and it was just a matter of finding the right path for the sidewalk to minimize tree removals and still allow for the drainage to run off the road. We don't have curb and gutter in most of that area, so we still had to accommodate our roadside ditches.
Okay, and I know we've gone over this a number of times, but adjacent property owners are responsible for the sidewalks. Do they know that if they don't have sidewalk and you're going to add sidewalk to it, or do they wake up one morning and there's someone with a cement truck and a shovel putting sidewalk in? And
Well, the responsibility being on the homeowners. Some homeowners are aware of that, some are not until they, I mean, I just got a call today. Someone was calling about the bad sidewalk in front of their house and asking the city to fix it. And, you know, we inform people that is the property owner's responsibility to make those repairs unless, you know, there's heaving caused by a city tree. So some people are aware of it, some people not. And they find out once the sidewalk, if the sidewalk falls into disrepair, they're either finding out from code enforcement or they're being proactive trying to get it fixed and are making the phone calls and finding out that it's their responsibility.
I don't know, it just seems to me that we would have more friends and not so many angry people if we told them in front that they don't really have a choice, but, I mean, we have to pick our words, but they don't have a choice, but we're going to put in a sidewalk that you've got to be responsible for. So, rather than have a code enforcement come out and knock on their door and say, you're not taking care of the sidewalk like you're supposed to, and they say, well, I didn't know I was supposed to do that.
Yeah, that's some messaging that I can talk to community relations about. There might be, you know, an appropriate way to spread that information either through the newsletters or through Cable 15.
Yeah, it could be just a general announcement in one of the letters that he sends out. The other question that I have is at 8 Mile and Berg Road, that's going to be completely shut off during this process. Now, there's a business down there that's 100 yards north of 8 Mile Road. And I'm sure they have supplies and everything brought in all the time, probably in pretty large trucks. Is there any way that they can still have access to that business off of 8 Mile Road? Because time is money for a business. And if the delivery has to go all the way around and battle with the people that are putting in a road and stuff like that.
So that's Lumagen that you're speaking of. That's
Yes.
On the west side there.
Yeah, when they first went into business, they were on 10 Mile Road, across from where Kentucky Fried Chicken is now.
Okay.
But-
Last year, the county drain office was doing a sewer lining project that came out. It followed along the river, which is where this bridge is also, and then came out right by 8 Mile Road. So there were traffic controls at that time. So we did have a lot of communication with Lumagen during that project, and we have the right contacts there, and they're pretty involved in calling and finding out, you know, I had given them a heads up at that time that Berg project was going to be coming as well. Their preference was to be able to go out to 9 Mile as opposed to 8 Mile. And not that we exactly, you know, made our plan to work just for that company, but it was nice to hear that that seemed to be their preference. That was more driven by their employees. I think they felt that their trucks, as long as they know ahead of time where they need to come from, is not a problem. But for their employees, they prefer to head toward 9 Mile.
That's interesting. Okay. All right, I was just trying to help.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Mandelbaum?
Thank you. This is, I don't know if it's not really a question, but it's about the sidewalks that Councilwoman Banks was talking about. I know that when there was extensive road reconstruction in my neighborhood, I had the same complaints, the same questions. And while that was a little different because there was also a lot of sewer work and home connections, there were some sidewalks that were replaced as part of the project. But in general, it was the same thing. Their homeowners' responsibility to fix those. At the same time, I do know that code enforcement has gone out and the city has even fixed sidewalks because just this morning I received I don't want to use the word complaint, but from somebody who I guess didn't realize how quickly the time passed and the city came and fixed his sidewalk and he received a nice bill in the mail because they did it. So they are going around, and that was in an area where the city did spot concrete work. And so I do know the city is going around checking for the sidewalks, but in general, when it is the homeowner's responsibility, it gets very difficult or tricky to use city money for private property for a number of reasons. But I do understand your complaints or your concerns, and if there's a way that we could do it, I would be all for it without running into issues of having that city money being used to help private property improvements. So, and I know Lee and I have had that conversation many times about, can you just fix this sidewalk? You're ripping out all the squares next to it and leaving one island, but it gets, the city has some legal issues as well with that, so. But if there's a way, I would fully support that.
Thank you. Councilwoman Banks?
I do know that when they have done the roads in different areas in the past, like for the driveways, whoever was doing the work would let the homeowner know, okay, we can fix the end of your driveway for X number of dollars. And, some people took them up on that offer and some didn't. I mean, I don't know, maybe in this situation, just asking even if we can be creative. I mean, if someone were to go out and say, okay, because these are not concrete sidewalks, they're asphalt, to put a layer of asphalt or grind or mill or whatever, might be $200 or who knows, depending how much it is, maybe the association will work. But if we can educate the people as we're going along, or someone at least lets them know, just would be nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there no other questions, council? Are we ready to,
Madam Chair,
yes.
I move that we approve the agreement for the rehabilitation of Berg Road from 8 Mile Road to Simmons Road, as indicated at item C in the agenda.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Brightwell, supported by Councilman Cruz, for us to approve the agreement for the rehabilitation of Berg Road from 8 Mile to Simmons Road as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to move the approval of the MDOT Local Bridge Program application for the preventive maintenance on Bridge Street Bridge, Structure B, and the Tamarack Trail Bridge.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Cruz, for the approval of the authorization to submit the MDOT local bridge application. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the proposed EV charging station and user fees.
Good evening, Council.
Good evening.
The 2 EV charging stations have been installed on campus. They are ready to be put to use. Unfortunately, we could not put them where we originally intended, which was between the library and City Hall because of the amount of underground infrastructure. So instead, we took Councilman Mandelbaum's suggestion and we put it in the underground parking structure. Fortunately, that saved us a lot of money on installation and even a little bit on the purchase of the charging station because we did not need the pedestal. Delayed the process a little bit because we had to change the charging stations. Regardless, I'm here tonight to discuss and request your approval for charges for charging. Prices are in kilowatt, which is a kilowatt is what the electricity that we require to run 110-watt light bulbs. So we pay 6.8 cents per kilowatt. That's because we buy our electricity at 13,000 volts instead of 220 volts like residents do. Residents pay I think 15 to 17 cents per kilowatt. Average charging station rates in Michigan, according to the Free Press, are 31 to 61 cents per kilowatt. With that said, most of the charging stations around us are free. Lawrence Tech, 1000 Town Center, 1-800-Lawyers, and almost all the dealers. The closest comparable dealers or charging stations would probably be in Royal Oak, where they charge 20 cents a kilowatt hour with a minimum of $1, maximum of 10. Our office back end does not support the minimum maximum, so what we're recommending is a $1 charging fee to make sure that credit card charges are always more than covered, and 20 cents per kilowatt hour. That way it's a little bit more than charging at home, so people won't come here to charge instead of at home, but it still is a pretty good charging rate, and we're comparable with the city of Royal Oak. So we're requesting you approve a charging cost of 20 cents per kilowatt hour. We will report this to you annually and request a review with the budget like we do with other fees that are charged.
Okay. Council, is there any questions? Councilman Mandelbaum?
I'm excited for this. I know that hopefully eventually when the city starts using electric vehicles, we could start charging our vehicles as well. Part of the money that was saved, because we had to switch locations, will that money be used for signage and both on the ground as well as wayfinding signs?
Well, sir, our cost was about, in fact, you brought up a couple of things I should have mentioned, and I apologize. For one thing, the signage we have in place are 2 signs on the pillars right outside the parking structure. If you stop there and look, you see the EV charging signs hanging down, 2 of them, in the lane. And then there's 4 signs at the actual charging spot. And it's almost, I think it's the 2nd and 3rd, maybe 4th and 5th spot in. So I think it should be pretty easy to find. Most people will use the app to take them to the geolocated entrance of the structure. And from there, there's, as you said, there's markings on the ground for EV charging in the driveway, and there's signs that people can see. So I think it should be okay. If we need to add more, we certainly will. Our grant was $5,000. Our net cost of installing this was about $2,400. And also the part about charging our own city vehicles, city-owned vehicles, was excellent, because we can use the same fobs we use to open doors, can be programmed to activate the chargers, and that circumvents the entire charging process and tracks it by vehicle, or at least driver. So that way, when we do move into an electronic fleet, those 2 charging stations can be put to use at night when people aren't on the campus. So that was an excellent point. I appreciate you bringing that up, sir.
Okay. I had another question that just escaped me.
Okay. You want me to come back?
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilman Cruz?
Yes, one question that I had was, now, I'm assuming now that we have these in place, every time somebody uses it, it's going to increase our electric bill here at City Hall. Is that correct?
It will, but fortunately, I mean, we have an incredible electric rate, 6.8 per kilowatt hour, 6.8 cents. We're charging 20 cents. The purchase of the EV charging station included 5 years of back-end support. So customers will use the app to log in. The app will charge their credit card. We'll just receive a monthly check, which will be roughly twice what, a little more than twice what the electricity costs us. So you're right.
And that was all I was trying to get to. Did you feel the cost is going to be enough to cover whatever increase we have?
Yes, sir, we should be okay. We should start to recoup the cost of the installation. Fortunately, the installation, the back-end support, and the purchase was only $2,400 because we have a $5,000 DTE grant.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hoskins?
Thank you. And just going back to, let's say we wanted to expand and add more EV charging stations. Now, will we be able to, are there other spots on the campus, for example, where we could add it beyond just the underground parking, or is that just the optimal place?
That was the optimal place as far as the cost of installation. And the thought was that these would probably end up used for a lot of our vehicles eventually anyway. There are other places they can be installed. It's a couple things. It's where the electricity is. Some of our buildings have more electricity, some are pretty close to their limit right now. So we can add some. We could even bring in more electricity, but hopefully we wouldn't have to. That would be a really expensive proposition. Right now, there's a waiting list for grant funding for more charging stations, but my intent to discuss with the administration was to hope to get on a waiting list for DPW so we can charge city fleet vehicles, and maybe Beechwoods and here for more locations. Yes, sir. And we'll, wherever we can put them in, it's going to be a mix of cost of installation plus where the electricity is available.
Yeah, because the whole reason why we wanted to put it between the library and the and here is because at the time we thought that was the best place for it because it was closest to whatever, like I can't remember exactly what, but I think it was closest to like a source for electricity, right?
It was close to a lot of things. We hoped it would. You're right. It was relatively close to a source. Unfortunately, although the contractors came out and said, yes, this is a great location, before we let them start, we brought DPW out to do the misdig, and they were pretty candid with us. You know, they can't officially locate other people's infrastructure, but this employee, he worked for misdig before we hired him, and he said, there's your electricity, there's that gasoline line that runs through. I wouldn't put anything here. So that's why that got knocked out.
All right, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Banks.
Thank you. I'm excited to see that we've installed the charging stations here at City Hall. But I'm just curious, and I don't know if you can answer this question. The battery for a car, how many, am I saying this right, kilowatts does it take to charge a battery? Or, I mean, like,
You know, I mean, I have an electric car. I watch it run. I see it run on 7, 6, 8, 10 kilowatt hours to run it. Charging, I don't sit in it and watch it charge. Could I send a written report to council just to make sure I don't quote some numbers that are off?
okay, because I don't even know how big the batteries are.
It really varies per vehicle.
Okay, so you have an electric.
I have a
How
couple.
how big is your battery?
My battery, I mean, physically, it's basically the entire bottom of the car. But what I'd like to do.
I'm thinking the battery.
Oh, no. It's, I mean, this vehicle, the Bolt that I have, has no engine. So it needs a big battery.
Oh,
So,
okay. And that will charge overnight?
It will charge roughly, because the Bolt charges at 32 amps, just to let you know, the chargers we bought that will go up to 40 amps, kilowatt hours. I'm sorry, 40 kilowatt hours. 40 amps. I don't want to mix that up. They will go up to 40 amps, which like right now, the 2021 Bolt will not support. The 2022 will. I just noticed that. So, but it'll charge, that's why I put the 25 to 30. It doesn't depend on our charger. Our charger will do 30 miles for every hour, but most cars out there, a lot of the cars at least, will only charge at the 32 amp, which is 25 hours or miles an hour. But yes, you can charge all night, and you'll charge your whole car up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Mandelbaum.
Thank you. I remember my question. And I don't know if there's any rules, if we have to create a new city ordinance, but if a person parks in that spot and they do not have an electric vehicle, is that something that the police department or code enforcement would ticket?
They are posted for that already, EV charging only, or EV vehicles only. So we'll check with parking enforcement, make sure that that's adequate for them to enforce. Maybe we need a new ordinance, I don't know.
Okay.
We'll look into that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Brightwell.
You might have answered this while I was out. I needed to step out. But John, two things. What is the level 2, is that the high end of charging station, or is there another more efficient charging
That is
station?
a great question, sir. When you buy your car, you'll get a level 1 charger, which means you can plug into 110 volts, and you'll add maybe 4 to 6 hours of electricity, or mileage for every hour charging, almost not worth it. If you have a home charger that runs off 220 volts, that's a level 2, and you'll charge, as I say, you'll add 25 to 30 miles of range for every hour of charging. Now, there is a 3, it's commonly referred to as a 3, and what it is a DC fast charger. Those are quite a bit more expensive. I mean, we spent $2,000 for 2 of them, minus the grant. We just spent 10, 20 times that for DC fast, because what that does is it actually stores the electricity in the DC mode, so it bypasses the car's converter. Because when I plug my car in, I'm just providing AC electricity to the car. The converter in the car is changing that to DC. That's why I say there's different charging rates for our charger depending on what your car is. Now, an EV fast charger totally circumvents that and dumps DC electricity right into your car. I think they say 60 miles for an hour, but I've used DC fast chargers, and before you walk away, you've added 3 or 4 miles.
Okay.
So it's mile, as opposed to 25 miles an hour.
Okay. I'm getting at this just from a standpoint that down the road, we will probably have a fleet of automobiles that are all EV. Down the road, I'm looking at this. And I know this is my favorite topic, our comprehensive need assessment. And we will make a decision where we want this campus to be before we start putting a bunch of chargers in the ground. So I'm thinking that if we have a fleet of vehicles that are all EV, is it rationally thinking that they will be high-end chargers charging those vehicles when they are not being moved? Is that so we would have to transition to the high-end charging stations, is that right?
Sir, you always bring up the comprehensive facility needs assessment, and you're always right.
I'm scared, excuse me.
Sir, you always bring up the assessment, and you're always right when you do it, because we have to consider that, and we are backing into a decision that we're not making. So every dollar we invest could be a dollar that we choose not to invest if we had decided. So you are right. Fortunately, for most of our charging, a level 2 is fine. A lot of our cars, our inspectors, other cars, they're not used at night. They can charge on a level 2, 25 miles an hour perfectly fine. They're not that expensive to install. If these chargers needed to be moved because we moved the campus, we can move them. That's not a huge issue. But your point about the comprehensive facility needs assessment is always on point. It's correct.
Okay. So whether we move or don't move, we need to start thinking about investing in these stations to charge our fleet, which will be all electric at some point in time. And that'll be X amount of, I guess we can get with our finance department and whatever researchers, and that'll be X millions of dollars that we have to invest in charging stations that will take care of our fleet of 500 vehicles.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Not 500, but a lot. You're right.
Yeah, whatever we got now. I just threw a couple hundred on the stack, I guess.
And for that purpose, we will put as many as we can in the lower parking structure because it's so easy and it's where a lot of the cars park anyway. But yes.
Okay, that's a discussion for another day. But, okay, Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other questions, council, are we prepared to vote on it?
Yep. Madam Chair?
Yes.
I'd like to move that we accept the proposed EV charging station user fees as presented.
Support. It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilwoman Banks, for the approval of the proposed EV charging station user fees as presented. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. And I will, through the clerk, submit some documentation that'll help get a better picture of charging in general. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have the presentation and discussion regarding the special use request of the Southfield Fire Department for Fire Station Number 5, Department Headquarters. I thought we did this already. This is another one?
I'll get into that. With your permission,
Yes,
as we
please.
discussed, I'd like to introduce two new planners that joined our team in the
Yes.
last 2 weeks. As you recall, our previous entry-level planner, Kyle Bryce, resigned at the end of last year, and it's been a 3-month process in order to find his replacement. We also had a retirement. Ms. Kozlowski from our department spent 20 years here with the city, and she is now retired. But I'm very happy, if I could ask the two new planners to come up, to introduce Suzanne Hanna, who is going to be our new sustainability planner, and it's a redefined role from our landscape design coordinator. And Ms. Hanna is a Lawrence Tech University grad, and she has approximately 9 years of experience in private sector engineering and architecture, and we're happy to have her aboard, as well as Ross Quiro, who will be our new entry-level planner. Ross is currently finishing up his Master's of Urban Planning from Wayne State University and had a several-month part-time experience with the city of Hamtramck. And I wanted to connect the face with a name, and if they want to say a couple words or you have any questions, I wanted to introduce them today, and we're happy to have them aboard.
Thank you. Welcome.
Welcome.
Did you have anything you'd like to say? Or?
Start.
Good evening, Council. My name is Suzanne Hanna, the new sustainability planner here at the city. I'm a 2-time Lawrence Tech grad, and I look forward to building a more sustainable future for the city alongside all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Ross Quiro. I really appreciate the opportunity to come work for a great city. I appreciate Terry bringing me on board, and I look forward to getting involved with the community and getting to work. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome.
Yeah, welcome.
Do you have some questions?
No, I just, as a Lawrence Tech grad as well, welcome. We're glad that you're here. And then to the planner, when do we start consulting with your new planners with all the things that got put on the back burner when Kyle left?
They're ready, willing, and able.
All right. Because I know that there were several things that we paused that you and I were working on with some developers.
And each of them have different skill sets, so it won't be a complete replacement for one to the other.
Correct.
I actually look at both of their experiences is to be able to expand what the planning department can offer. So they're free for your questions and consultation with myself. So,
all right, thank you.
They're both full-time now.
Thank you. Councilman Brightwell?
Yeah, I want to just welcome you aboard. And obviously, I interact with the planning department periodically, and I was able to interact with Kyle periodically. And I definitely appreciated how the planning department allowed Kyle to grow. And I think I want to thank Terry for that. I think you're in a very good spot here in the city of Southfield. We have a lot of things going on in the city, diverse things that are going on in the city that I feel that I know when I was starting, I enjoyed the fact that I got into certain companies, corporations that were noted for a lot of things were going on, and they were good in mentoring and fostering the new employees. So I think you're in a good spot. I'm glad that Terry believed in you, brought you on board. So we look forward to you doing great things for this city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Crode, I guess we'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you. So I'll jump right into item F. And what I'll say as a primer to item G is that you have seen the fire tower training station before, I think for financial reasons, and it's recently gone through the Planning Commission for site plan approval. But in the course of our review, we discovered that the fire station that was built in approximately 1976 never received special use approval. So we're trying to clean up the record and follow the same guidelines that we do of our private corporations. So tonight, we're talking about first the use of a municipal facility in a single-family residential district. And we have many of our top representatives from the fire department to answer any specific questions, and then we'll go directly into the fire training tower as a site plan. And both of these are only for discussion items tonight. They'll be coming back next week for consideration of approval. And again, you're very familiar with the location on Lasser Road, immediately south of the high school. Currently, it's zoned RE single-family residential, and it's planned for medical educational institution, but it's the special use of a municipal facility in the single-family district that's requiring the special land use. The other thing is part and parcel to the fire tower being added, there was some land that was acquired through the school district, and that we're covering as an umbrella for the special use approval. So, Chief, do you want to come up and just give a little bit of history? I mean, it should be pretty straightforward that this is an important facility and it's been there for a while, but it's good to just recap all the important things that happen out of this station.
Good evening again. Just as you said here, the building was opened in 1976. We run our administrative out of there, as well as the fire station number 5, as well as our training facilities. We currently have approximately daily, there's about, I'd say, anywhere from 18 to 22 people a day out of there. But it's, like I said, it's firemen, they house there, we train there, and administrative facilities are also there in the building. No, I mean, it's also, it was a point that made up in the planning meeting. It also is a safe haven. Also, if something were to happen at the high school and so forth, this is a building that becomes a safe haven for individuals to actually go there and be safe until we can find out somewhere else to house them. But pretty much self-explanatory.
So are there any questions or comments regarding the special use in itself?
Yes, Councilman Mandelbaum?
Thank you. If the council were not to approve the special use, would the fire department have to close down this headquarters?
Well, it's determined as a legal non-conforming, but you can't expand or enlarge a non-conforming.
And
that we're enlarging it by adding this additional land and constructing the tower. So we would be out of compliance with our own zoning ordinance. And as you know, setting precedent, it's difficult to make our private businesses comply when we don't follow our own rules. So this is just really cleaning up the record so that we have an official approval by council of the use.
So I guess my next question would be, since we discovered this, do we need to start looking at other fire stations or other city property?
That'll be our next exercise, but since this was more immediate because of the fire tower itself, it was raised during the Planning Commission meeting, and we did our research, and we tried to catch up the special use so we wouldn't delay the tower being constructed.
So you mentioned it was raised during the Planning Commission. Was it one of the commissioners that asked?
Yes, one of the commissioners.
Okay, so it wasn't something that we even found?
No, it was one of the commissioners. And what was, it had received administrative approval prior. So typically you can't do administrative approval if you didn't have the special use. So the records were inconsistent, so we made an assumption and what I always say is that we go through this course of public hearing and discussion and debate to discover things that we may not be aware of. And that's part of the due process.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Brightwell?
I'm all for this project and the location. I remember when they brought it to us from the design and the modernness of the container being used for training and all that stuff. So I'm pretty much for this project. And for numerous reasons, but then we can get into detail. And I don't want to become a classroom teacher checking stuff, but whenever I see misspellings and something that comes before council, it disturbs me, primarily because of my background. I know whenever a simple arithmetic error in a report, it just got thrown out, and that's somebody stayed up midnight getting that report together for various people. So there was a misspelling here, and I brought it up with the other in the first paragraph. Fire, F-I-R-E is spelled wrong. It's spelled F-O-R-E. And I don't want to be. I know I read everything that comes before me, and I bring it up, and I bring it up to the appropriate individual. So, and I was told that these documents, before they get to us, should be looked at, should be reviewed. And so I'm going to ask that they be reviewed for these minor things, and which are it's an indication of, let's say, sloppiness, and it could be an indication of some people just not paying attention to detail. But I am continually will do what I'm here on council to be, to look at it and to bring it forward, and to just hope that people will do what I'm told that they are supposed to do when they submitting packages to council. But either way, I'm for this project, and I know we're not at that particular point right now, but I'm for this project. I still recall the presentation that was made to us about the significance of this and the research that had gone into getting the design and the containers there for how they can be changed and or modified to train for a particular certain fire type situation. So, Madam Chair, that's my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We have no other comments on this special use request.
Okay. So this will come back to you next week for public hearing and consideration.
Okay.
And then specifically, we have the construction of a 50-foot high fire tower training facility located in the northwest portion of the facility. Again, it's in RE single-family residential. It does require special use for the subject parcel. This is a detail of the location and accessory facilities of the new proposed fire training tower. These are some details. I know the fire department is here if you have any specific questions on the actual construction, location, height, and they are required to go for zoning board of approval because the containers are being shipped in from outside the community, and there may be some other waivers that are required, but that will happen as a subject to condition of your approval. And with that, I don't know if the fire department has anything to add.
Well, I mean, I appreciate your consideration with this major project for the city and in our collaboration with the school board of building something like this. But I think we went over it time and time again. I think we've done our research in trying to present this presentation and what we're trying to build here. So we're happy to answer any of your questions.
Councilwoman Banks?
Thank you. Chief, have we ordered the sections for this particular building that we're proposing? Because I know we talked about this a few months ago, and I couldn't remember if you had ordered it at that time or what.
No, I waited for approval, and we're still making sure that we dot our i's and cross our t's before we order we actually order the facility.
Oh, I thought we gave approval for this, but okay. And then how long is it going to take to order something like this? I mean, it just seems like everything's taking forever right now.
Well, we're looking at hopefully, if everything goes right with breaking ground, May, June, that we should be at August, September.
So these, the parts to this structure are available?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Well, that we would demobilize the current, our current fire training, which is, the current training tower is behind the station right now. We'll actually demolishing that also once this is built.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions?
Madam President?
Yes.
I just wanted to Ms. Banks, council did authorize the purchase. We've not placed the order, and there are still a couple, I'll use the term logistical issues, resolution and finalization of the agreement with the school district regarding the property. The building department is doing a number of exercises that making sure it fits code. There could be a few, what I'll use the term scope creep that come up. I think we need to take a look at some of the flat work around this site. That needs to be addressed outside of this project. And then there was some discussion about underground electricity with the building department, and we're still working our way through that. So the issue in front of you tonight pertains to the planning issue and in particular the special land use. But there are still some other residual issues that as this project rolls out, it wasn't as simple as just putting the boxes on site. I think and we're just working our way through some of the code things where I was privy to a 45-minute conversation that it wasn't as easy as it seemed to be, but I think we worked all of those out. This isn't a structure that's built every day.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Mandelbaum?
Thank you. Yes, I know the city administrator just touched on it, but I have been in conversation with the building department because we have our construction board of appeals that this will have to come to. So if anybody knows an electrician, master electrician, journeyman, who has commercial and residential experience, please apply to that board. That's the one position we have not been able to fill yet. But we are actively searching. Everyone that I've called that I know has pretty much just turned me down. So tell your friends and neighbors we are looking for an electrician to join our construction board of appeals so we can approve this fire tower. So.
If I may also add, Madam President, that board meets very, very seldomly. It's the first time in a number of years, but this is one of those points they will need to meet to help us resolve some points in the construction code.
And we may have to consider upping our stipend for those. Other communities have resorted to that because of the lack of response. So that's something we may want to consider, upping the pay for that board.
Would that be something that would have to come through the council?
Yes.
Okay.
So that's something we may want to consider.
I'm also, don't want to get off topic, but we probably want to maybe consider that across all the boards, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Brightwell?
I'm enamored with this project. I really like this project. I remember when it first came to us, and I recall drilling down on this because of the the uniqueness of it, and I see the potential benefit for the department for this particular project. And Chief, can you just tell me again, and maybe it might be beneficial to the group, from a training standpoint, I know this will probably have, I think as I recall vaguely, that it will be open to other departments around the region or something, but can you just highlight the fact how beneficial this will be to the training of our firefighters?
Yes. Well, currently, 40% of our firefighters have less than 5 years' experience. You know, we can't teach that gut feeling of what it is when something's not right. So what we have to do is educate and train them. There is, like I said, there is not another training facility like this in the state. This will be a true, like, high-rise that we can train as many high-rises we have in the building is worth slope buildings, extrication. And actually have live fire. This will give our firefighters the training and education they need to remain safe and able to protect our citizens in the way that we feel that they should be protected. It just happened to be through retirements that we have a very young department, and this is what we need to help keep them safe, as well as joining in with the school board of having a fire academy at the high school. Instead of sending them out to Auburn Hillsworth, they can come right next door, train with the firefighters there, and get that training and actually graduate as a state certified firefighter in basic EMT. So this has a multi-functions, as well as now we're a member of Oakway, which is 9 other departments that are very similar to us, and we train with them constantly. The chiefs meet every month, the EMS coordinators meet every month, the training safety officers meet every month, and this is another benefit to us to actually how we train. Nothing more has been really seen as today. We had a 3rd alarm fire this morning, and we had 5 neighboring departments that helped us. And what made it really good is that this isn't the first time that we met and that we've trained together. They made a very aggressive stop on a apartment fire. We could have lost multiple units. 16 units were involved. We did lose 8, but the fire was through the roof when we received there. But everybody there that we trained with together. And as well as we had another fire this afternoon up on Northwestern. Same thing. The neighboring departments that came is neighboring departments that we train with all the time. So it really is a testament of where we're trying to go and up our game as far as training in surrounding areas. And with the new technology that's coming out with vehicles, with the new chemicals and new things that they're burning. Things are burning hotter, they're failing faster. This will help us help the firefighters remain safe as they protect our citizens, business partners around the city.
Well, thank you, sir. I just wanted to hear that story again, because I think this is a very good project and something that's beneficial to the residents of the city of Southfield. Thank you, Madam.
Thank you. Councilwoman Banks?
Thank you. With reference to the purchase of the fire tower, again, I thought we had authorized it, but I would hate to, if we haven't purchased it yet, I would hate to have you come back, Chief, to say, well, now it's gone up in price, because everything keeps going up in price. So I don't know if there's a way to order it and hold that price that we discussed, because I thought we discussed a price on it last time.
Right, we've consulted that. I don't know if you remember, this is our training captain, Jason Deneau. We've currently got our price locked in.
Okay, good.
Right now, but yeah, we wanted to make sure that a couple issues came up with this, and we wanted to make sure that we work our way through those before we actually purchase that. We want to be very conscious of the type of investment that the city's made, and we want to do our due diligence with it.
Well, you've got a price lock, so that's great. Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions?
So this will come back to you next week?
Yes.
Both items for consideration of approval?
Yes. Okay, thank you for these presentations. You want to go right into the next one, which is on the
Thank you.
sky construction?
And I've been looking for the applicant. He's not here. So I'm going to ask if you would like me to do an introduction presentation, now, or we could bring this back at a later date.
It's up to you.
I can give an overview.
And-
There's
but
no
if we
action
have-
being taken tonight,
Right, but if we have any questions.
then the applicant will have to come back.
Okay. Go right ahead.
I'll just, this is an existing office building, one of many that had been vacant or underutilized, and this is part of the owner's attempt to attract and retain tenants by adding construction of a rooftop deck. But in order to access the deck, they're proposing an exterior stairway to the rear of the property. And this is a existing extreme loans facility that's renting part of the building. The property is zoned B3, and it has a future land use designation of regional mixed use. The two areas that are being improved are pedestrian connection from the Northwestern Highway, public walk with some landscaping improvements, as well as an exterior stairway on the rear of the property. These are some details. It's approximately 16 feet 10 inches from grade to access the roof. I think these photos tell the story the best. There's an existing ADA ramp located in the rear of the building that gives access to the ground floor. But in order for them to get access to the roof, because there is no internal stairway, they have to construct an exterior pressure-treated stairway that then encroaches into the rear setback. And because of the encroachment into the rear setback, which requires a waiver, it has to go through council approval. That's really the story in a nutshell. So they'd like to add a rooftop deck for their employees, and they need to get access from the exterior. The exterior stairway is located in the rear but encroaches into the rear yard setback, therefore triggering a waiver, therefore triggering site plan approval. Otherwise, this would have been something we would have done administratively.
Okay.
So again, we'll reach back out to the petitioner and try to get him rescheduled here.
Councilwoman Banks?
What is the purpose of a rooftop
Deck?
deck? Thank you.
If we go back to the area, the site is built out and it's occupied mostly by parking lot. So there is no outdoor patio space available for their employees. The rear of the building is tight and there's a grate there. So there is no other area. They think that this would be a nice, attractive amenity for attraction and retaining their employees by having a rooftop deck for them to take lunch or to, take a break. That's really the purpose of the decking.
Okay, thank you.
They've tried, they had some iterations where they were going to remove parking spaces. They needed the parking spaces. There was access problems with their dumpster, so they came up with this as an innovative solution.
And this is a construction company /
It's, I believe they're like loan company. It's an
the
office.
loan company.
Yeah, it's like a back office loan processing.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Frazier?
Yeah, how can they justify putting a stairway up to the roof without making it ADA accessible?
Again, that's a question. They have accessibility to their ground floor. I don't know what type of amenities they have in there. I know you have to make reasonable accommodations, and that's a question that's better asked of the applicant.
Without throwing any rocks, hopefully not throwing any rocks. Seems like that would be a question that would be asked at the planning when they first came in.
Well, again, we knew that there was ADA access to the ground floor.
Yeah, but that's not what the law says. Okay.
Thank you. Councilman Mandelbaum?
Oh, thank you. I guess my question is not really about this particular project, it's about the scheduling of this. They're supposed to come back at the end of the month on the 25th. Is there a reason that, I guess, through the chair, that we can't schedule it at least, approve the scheduling, and then maybe have the petitioner come back next week if there's questions, and then, of course, he'll be back on the 25th. So I don't know if we were planning to push this off, or if we're just...
To your point, that's what we'll follow up tomorrow, and if we're able to bring them back at next week's study session, as a study session prior to the 25th, we'll do that. And unfortunately, we had some hiccups with them attending the Planning Commission.
Okay, thank you.
I mean, we always reach out to all the applicants on the Friday prior to, and sometimes the Monday of, and get confirmation, and then I can't explain why they're not here tonight.
And for a point of information, we have to be consistent in our practices. So if we do this for one person, we got to be consistent in all other applicants moving forward. So we want to make sure that we're not giving anyone preferential treatment, and that we're making everyone equitable across the board if this happened again.
But to the clerk's point, this has already been advertised for a public hearing on the 25th, and we do have an available meeting.
Right.
I'm not suggesting at this point, maybe on the 25th, we might have to ask for postponement, but.
I understand, I thought that there was some discussion of, since they weren't here but, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, this is, I'm going to try to give a high-level overview of our capital improvement program. This has gone before the Planning Commission, our long-range study, where we had representation from each department present like we have for the past several years. That was a 3+ hour meeting. Then the Planning Commission had a follow-up. This was also presented to the Finance Committee. And then the Planning Commission actually held their regular meeting on the 23rd and made a recommendation to move this forward. Tonight is a high-level overview, again, for consideration that the council would bring this back on the 11th for adoption. And again, the process is to have the CIP adopted prior to you beginning your budget hearings. So what is the CIP? Again, it's a 6-year period for inclusion into the annual budget. The first year represents the actual current budget, and years 2 through 6 are best guesstimates projected by each of the departments. It does not address all of the expenditures of the city, but includes physical improvements that are permanent in nature and substantial equipment purchases needed for the city to function, typically $5,000 or greater. And the CIP is beneficial to the community because it allows for a systematic evaluation of all potential projects at the same time, provides coordination between departments, and presents a uniform plan for financing. It also is required by the State Planning Enabling Act, and it is a requirement for us to continue being redevelopment ready certified. Again, this is the text right out of the State Enabling Act. Basically is a summary of what I've just explained about why it's important and why it needs to be done. Our last plan was adopted April 2021 for fiscal years 21-22 through 26-27. A copy of that is available on our website. Again, we're getting towards the end of a process that really began in December when we reached out to all the departments to start preparing and compiling their projects, working with city administration and our finance department. All project requests that for each budget year has to be supported by the capital improvement plan. Now, this doesn't guarantee that the project will be funded by the council, but it gives you a blueprint. For example, if you know that the fire department needs additional fire equipment in years 2, 3, or 4, you can start planning for it now. Typically, the budget categories are covered under 8 areas: equipment, facilities, water, sewer, stormwater and floodplains, parks and recreation, data management, roads and bridges, and then pedestrian enhancements. First, we'll cover equipment and facilities. As you know, each year, equipment is maintained by the Department of Public Works and the motor pool based on their review of existing conditions of vehicles, mileage, usage, and so forth. This is what they're proposing needs to be purchased. They also do vehicles for the police department. The cable department has equipment needs, including 4 new iMac editors, LED lighting for the studio, new playback system, new teleprompter, and I just received an update today. And we'll have this updated for next week. They've also included a character generator. And their total cost has now increased to approximately $158 million. $158,000, excuse me. With regards to equipment and facilities, for 20 years, the Public Library has provided opportunities to residents of all ages for learning, collaboration, achievement, cultural enrichment, recreation, and relaxation. They've identified 3 main areas, including building repairs and equipment replacement, investment in efficiency and longevity of the library facility, and to provide innovative service to allow residents greater access throughout the work week and weekends. With regard to building repairs, this is based on OHM's needs assessment, which is roughly identified about $1.5 million for new equipment in the public areas, some security upgrades, and then carpeting replacement of windows, repair and replacement of interior, exterior doors, etc. With regards to library facility, they're in need of electrical upgrades, HVAC enhancements, fire suppression upgrades, roof replacement, and DTE retro commissioning. Based on OHM needs assessment, they're estimating $4.25 million. And then one of the innovations that they're proposing is a 24-hour library kiosk, which will provide 24/7 access to library materials at a fraction of the cost of building a branch. The 24-hour library kiosk will enable patrons to check out and return materials, place and pick up holds, download audio and ebooks, and browse in catalogs and more. And they estimate about $250,000, including a one-card system for printing, copying, and paying fines. With regards to the police department, as you know, each year the police department, based on recommendations by the manufacturer, replaces personal protection equipment, including ballistic vests, tasers. The mobile command center, I believe, was received when the military was demilitarizing and providing the equipment available for municipalities to use. They like to upgrade their mobile command center. The current one is over 20 years old. The generator is no longer reliable, and they estimate replacement of this vehicle about $500,000. The general purpose armored vehicle, again, based on trying to demilitarize the existing equipment and providing more socially acceptable police vehicles while serving the needs. Their current vehicle is over 14 years old, and they're proposing a new general purpose armored vehicle shown here, approximately $300,000. Accent body and fleet cameras, I know that they've been in front of council before with presentations. These are body cameras and in-car cameras that are purchased on a payment plan, and they have a revolving system for this equipment. Also, the police department recently enacted the license plate readers to great success. As you're aware from reports from the chief, they want to continue to expand that program. The Detective Bureau needs upgrades with their interview room cameras. And then the SWAT rifle optics and magnifiers, they need to do some additional purchases. Firearms range repair is detailed here with some of the existing conditions. And then additional repairs of the walls, ballistics, hanging targets, mounts, estimated about $280,000. And then finally, their crime lab, they've kind of outgrown their existing space and they need some additional storage units and redesign and retrofitting of their crime lab. With regards to the fire department does a great job on inventorying existing wear and tear based on miles driven, years of service, and other intangibles. You've seen this before regarding the life expectancy of current vehicles, and then a breakdown of what their projected needs are over the next 1 to 6 years. They also, additional essential equipment includes medical, fire, and miscellaneous, as outlined in the slide above. With regards to facilities, the fire department facilities are a direct reflection of the city to the taxpayers. As you know, the fire station must accommodate diverse functions, including housing, administration, equipment and vehicle storage, maintenance, training, community education, hazardous materials storage, and so forth. It also, in a state of emergency, can provide safe refuge for citizens, visitors, and residents. And it's important to take a proactive approach when we're replacing exhausted items, as you've seen earlier today. This is the inventory of our existing 5 stations. The average fire station is 44 years old. I have asked the chief about the location and response service. They feel that the location and response are adequate, but there's been limited major maintenance on these aging facilities. They're starting to show decades worth of wear and outdated infrastructure, and renovations and new construction is essential for all of their fire stations. Again, here's a map identifying the 5 locations throughout the city. And then here is a schedule that they're proposing for the next 6 years on critical needs for the department as far as replacement, maintenance, or new construction. With regards to facilities administration, I know you've heard from Mr. Macrina about the lost years. And based on OHM's facility assessment, many of the facilities are in need of major repairs. Investments made in the past several years is approximately $47 million, but there's additional costs due to deferred maintenance and additional investments that are needed. The good news is that ultraviolet air purifiers were retrofitted to most of the buildings on campus, and that upgrades were made to the police parking garage as well as the roof and plaza drain pipes. With regards to water and sewer, I know you've seen presentations from engineering and DPW, and this is a schedule, current schedule of 2022 projects with their locations throughout the city. Roads and bridges, again, many of you are aware that Tanglewood Subdivision, Berg Road, you heard the city engineer present earlier tonight. Northwestern Service Drive, Telegraph to Bell, Shiawassee Road, close to the John Grace project, 8 Mile Road resurfacing, and Telegraph and 8 Mile interchange are all proposed by MDOT over the course of the next year or two. And then this is the schedule of proposed construction 22 through 24, and then future needs as funding is identified. With regards to stormwater floodplains, you've heard previous presentations from our stormwater manager on grants and other projects that are currently in the works. Current stormwater projects include Tamarack Basin River Restoration Project, LTU Wetlands, the Rouge Green Infrastructure and Tree Planting Project, Stream Bank and Infrastructure Erosion at the Beach Road Lift Station. And then the projects have been outlined here on the map, their locations. With regards to Parks and Recreation, I know we just went through an extensive 5-year Park and Recreation Master Plan, but as you know, the Parks Department is responsible for close to 775 acres of parkland and open space at 33 sites located throughout the city, which includes a 9-hole golf course, the Southfield Sports Arena, Beachwoods Recreation Center, historical properties, Carpenter Lake and Valley Woods Nature Preserve, as well as 2 cemeteries and multiple walking paths. Again, their mission includes safety and accessibility, events and programming, and service delivery. And as you know, recently, Council has approved and authorized improvements from Miller Park and Sims Park based on their public input through the master plan. The city recently received grants to help make improvements at Carpenter Lake, and there are several other improvements scheduled for existing parks and facilities this year as well as the upcoming years. Data management system. Our technology service is responsible for 3 major core competencies: availability of resources, uptime and security, and the following capital improvement projects aid in that effort: improvements and annual maintenance to INET, uninterruptible power supply, or UPS, which maintains stable, filtered, and continuous power to the data center and other critical networks within the city, firewall replacement, computer and data center replacement, police fleet technology replacement, replace current aging in-car computers, and new equipment, and Eden financial system replacement. Then finally, document management software, Cisco switch replacement, and gigabyte telephones. Many of these projects you've heard in the past. And then finally, as was touched upon earlier this evening, there are a number of pedestrian enhancements, including art installations, bike paths, citywide sidewalk gap infill and streetscape improvements. We have been working on the previous master plan, identified large gaps in the system. The 3 that are outlined in yellow, the council has supported with current Metro funds and partnership with the Southfield City Center to be installing approximately 1.5 miles of new pathway this fiscal year. And we keep to identifying other areas that are underserved by our public pathway network. Again, the Southfield City Center has been used as a model for identifying a 5-year comprehensive plan for pedestrian amenities that we are now starting to look at other areas within the city, the Downtown Development Authority, Centropolis, and the 9-mile corridor. And again, this is just to highlight, in many cases, the photo on my left identifies goat paths. This is trodden down areas that pedestrians are using that is not safe or accessible, and then identified stretches that we currently have funding in place. As a matter of fact, in the last 2 weeks, you've probably seen some construction barrels and some culvert piping placed out between Lasser and Civic Center on southbound Northwestern Highway. These are 2 other areas. Berg Woods Park, the council approved additional funds from the Metro Fund. Will be installing a half-a-mile pathway west of Evergreen later this summer, and then extending our Northwestern Service Drive pathway from 9 Mile down to Cornell. There's an existing on-road bike route that goes east-west And our hope is to link with the Northland redevelopment, and then the DDA will be connected to the city center. Ascension Providence Hospital will be connected to LTU, all through non-motorized shared use pathway. And then, as you've heard the mayor, the city administrator, and myself talk in the past, is a new focus on 9 Mile Corridor and making major pedestrian transit, public art, and other improvements to connect east-west to Woodward Corridor through many of the other existing downtowns, such as Oak Park and Ferndale, and ultimately a regional connector from I-75 to 275. Many of these projects are supported not only from the 2016 master plan, but recently when we opened up for public comment last year, again, one of the top 3 items that is consistently raised by residents is the need for additional sidewalks, for maintenance, and for new connections to make our community much more accessible. And as you know, during COVID, we found that more people were out walking and utilizing these pathways for heart-healthy activity, as well as social well-being. And we continue to work on wayfinding, streetscape, pedestrian amenities, continuing to build our infrastructure of placemaking, and ultimately connecting our sub-areas within the city through these pedestrian networks. Currently, we're recently installing benches and trash receptacles at a number of our transit facilities. This project has been delayed since June 30th of last year because of logistics, supply, demand, and contractor shortages. But we've just been told as of this weekend, a number of the phase 1 installations took place. Suzanne is going to be going out, identifying and verifying those tomorrow, as a matter of fact. And we're continue to work on improving our transit and pedestrian network throughout the city. And again, this is based on planning, long-term planning that has been done by our department, identifying priorities based on need, transit propensity, working with DDOT and SMART, as well as looking at our density and walkability of each area. And then, as you're well aware, we're working with OHM, the Parks Department, the Library, Planning, and City Administration on making recommendations for more accessible improvements to the front lawn to take advantage of grant opportunities. So with that, that's my high-level overview, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. This is scheduled to come back next week for consideration of adoption. But if myself, we have representatives of the police department and the fire department here if you have any specific questions regarding some of their proposed improvements.
Council, does anyone have any questions? Councilman Mandelbaum?
Thank you. Terry, I can confirm that the benches and trash receptacles along 10 Mile have been installed as of Friday.
That's great to hear.
I've already received a lot of compliments, so thank you. My question is really for the fire department, since they're here. But in the CIP, I see that you're asking for or looking for a command center vehicle. But you're asking for a high-top conversion van? Did I read that correctly?
Yes, but right now the state's in the midst of redoing the old radio system. So we actually want to wait, and that's supposed to go into effect in August. We want to wait and see how that rolls out before we actually purchase. But it's also a problem with supply and demand of actually giving this vehicle. But yes, that is the plan.
So just out of curiosity, we know that, for example, the police department has their RV. Is there a reason you prefer a van more than an RV?
Yes, I think it's more maneuverable. So we feel instead of being in a pickup truck, when we're at a scene where you're able to be able to lay out your plan, able to stand up and actually contemplate and think about your plan, will actually help with the process. Right now, in our command vehicles, I mean, it's fine for I hate to say basic fire, but a basic residential house fire. But when you start the scope of getting bigger than that, you need more. You need more hands, and you need more ability to work your plan with other people, and that will provide us with that.
Okay. And then the other thing that I noticed is you're hoping to rebuild stations 1 and 3. Obviously, there's a large cost to that, and having been to both stations, I think 3 probably needs it more than 1. Where do you propose, are you going to have a temporary location and build on site? Are you going to try to find a new site within a certain radius? What are your ideas? Because obviously taking a fire station out of commission, if you're building on the same space, is difficult, and I'm sure residents would not be thrilled. But I just was wondering where you're looking to do and go.
Okay, well, both of these fire stations were built back in the 60s. So the plan would be, I mean, there is a possibility of getting a trailer while we build that, but more realistically, we would send them to headquarters at Station 5, and while they're rebuilding the station. So of course we're looking to do it one at a time. Station 1 is more a priority than a Station 3 current right now, and we believe the footprint for Station 3 that's fine. With Station 1, the footprint of what we want to do, we're looking for a bigger space to actually do that, because we have no other choice but to go up if we stay with the existing footprint.
So now I'm confused, because Station 3 is tiny, but you're saying that the space that it's currently on has enough, is enough to rebuild on that spot?
Yeah, on the land we have there, yes, we believe we have enough space for Station 3 to build the new station. But Station 1, where I'd want to move all of the administrative staff to, we'd be looking for a little bigger footprint.
Okay, that makes sense. But then if you move administrative staff to Station 1, what happens to Station 5?
Still becomes Station 5 and the training center, but currently right now, I don't even have a conference room currently right now, a meeting room. So that will give us the space that we need to be more up to date in the fire station. Proper workout room, proper zones by code now of dealing with cancer presumption areas, and that will allow us to add for the ADA and provide separate facilities for our men and women firefighters.
Okay, so piggybacking off that, my question to city administrator, when we're updating, I don't want to think I'm just picking on fire, but like the police department, they have a building that we're renovating it, or they're asking to renovate. We're talking about building a new building. Do we have funding sources for something like that? Are there grants? And I know that the CIP in general is a wish list, but I know this is one thing that we've been talking about for many years. I just was wondering if this wish list will have some type of merit or will come to fruition in some of these areas, or will it still remain a wish list?
The funding question is interesting. I'll simply say, without vision, the people perish. Without good counsel, the people perish.
Okay. That's all the questions I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Frazier?
Yeah, my question is more for the police department than it is the fire department.
We have Lieutenant Hughley Did I pronounce your name right? Correct. So he's here to answer questions on behalf of the police department.
Good evening, Council. Lieutenant Aaron Hughley from the Police Department.
Yes. I'm probably wrong, but I thought that when we got that command center, that I didn't realize that came from the federal government as surplus.
To my understanding, we did acquire it about 20 years ago. I know that was around about the time when the federal government was giving away a lot of equipment, things of that nature. As I'm thinking about our current mobile command center, it's a traditional Class A, so it doesn't appear to be a part of that. So I think we may have acquired that from federal funds. I don't know exactly the time frame. Again, that was about 20 years ago. So I can't definitively say, but it doesn't appear to be the militaristic style of those type of vehicles. So I think we may have acquired that through forfeiture.
Yeah, that was when Chief Thomas was here.
Yes, sir.
The other thing, too, is about a week or so ago, we took action on, quote, unquote, the tank.
Okay.
You know, and now that was something that we got from the federal government as surplus.
Indeed, yes, sir. So that's
And- Go
sorry
ahead.
about that. Yeah, so it's commonly referred to as a GPV or a general purpose vehicle.
Yes.
So that is one of the vehicles that we're trying to replace, yes, sir.
Yes. Now, it was my understanding when we got that, it was supposed to be shared by several cities, but stored in Southfield.
Yes, sir, that's correct. So one other jurisdiction that comes to mind is Novi. There's another jurisdiction to the east. There may be additional ones, but yes, we're currently sharing that vehicle. Again, it's well beyond its years. It's 14 years old. It's a vehicle that's outdated, it's antiquated, it no longer is under warranty, there's no parts available for it. So there's a number of things as it begins to break down and which it's currently doing, we're not going to be able to update, service it, or do anything with it.
Yeah, okay. I guess my point is, if it was given to several cities but stored in Southfield, if we're going to replace it, shouldn't the other cities chip in to help pay for it?
So we're not necessarily going to replace it. It's going to be used as a secondary vehicle. Again, the lifespan, it's reaching this point of life expectancy. So this vehicle is going to be used solely for Southfield. So again, it's less militaristic. It's a smaller vehicle, but it'll house our SWAT team members whenever they're deployed. So it'll be a vehicle that's specifically for the city of Southfield. And as that vehicle continues to break down and it is sent off to pasture, if you will, then it will no longer be used.
And will the new one that's purchased be only used for Southfield?
Yes, sir.
Did the other cities know that? That, I don't know, you know, I hope no city has to use it, but
Indeed.
if they say, hey, I'd like to borrow this, we have somebody holed up in a house, we can't get them out, you know, we need to borrow the thing that with the battering ram so we can get in the house and protect our people. And we say, well, I'm sorry that we don't use that anymore.
So my understanding is that just as we're funding and trying to budget for it, every city that has their own SWAT team, which is Special Weapons and Tactics, is that they are prepared to assume this financial responsibility on their own. Again,
Okay.
12, 14 years ago, it was a little bit different. That's why multiple jurisdictions are using it. But moving forward, we want to have something that's less militaristic, where the police department is cognizant of the appearance of the GPV is rather large. This vehicle is much more like an SUV type, but it's still going to serve the functionality purpose of protecting our officers, protecting citizens when we arrive on scene, for active shooter situations, rescuing hostages, rescuing officers. It's going to do all those things that we need, but it's going to have a softer appearance, if you will.
Right, yeah, I know part of the sales pitch was the current one, if someone was down, you could drive over and they could get them inside and save them without exposing everybody else.
Yes, sir, and this vehicle will still be able to do the same thing. it's an armored personnel carrier type vehicle. So in that same type of instance, if we have a high-risk type of situation where there's some type of gunfire, we can drive that vehicle as a blockade or an interceptor, if you will,
Yes.
and be able to pull people to safety, get them inside of the vehicle, and then drive away.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Brightwell?
Lieutenant, I always ask this question. When there are expenditures, do you know, I know Chief might do this, how much money we have in the drug enforcement fund, drug forfeiture fund?
So I don't know that exact amount. So can I ask, the reason you're asking is how is this vehicle going to be purchased?
Yeah, that is the next question, because whenever anything always comes through with it, I always ask the chief, whoever's there, why didn't we use drug forfeiture fund? And typically, we have used it, and I think that if you don't, but that, in essence, that's the reason for the question.
Yes, sir.
I would like to see those funds expended before we go into the general fund budget, but I don't know what rationale you would have at this point for not using those funds.
So what's been explained to me because of the cost of this purchase, this piece of equipment and the necessity of this equipment, that the consideration was the equipment revolving fund. So is that analogous to the general fund that you're speaking of?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
analogous.
And so that determination has been decided above my pay grade. I know, if I could say that. What we're looking for additionally is some type of grant funding. If there are grants available, that's something that we're going to consider. As we get to that process, the vendor, the manufacturer is going to assist us with that process. So to offset some of the costs in association with the equipment revolving fund or the general fund, that's something we're going to consider as well.
Okay, all right. Thank you. To be continued. Obviously, whenever something comes through that is not using those funds, it has to be explained why, to me, why it's not being used. Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, sir, absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, no other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
If I could, I again want to thank all the departments and their team members who put a lot of time in preparing these plans. I'd like to identify and recognize Sarah Malali and our Assistant City Planner, who really functions as the project manager coordinating between all the departments and the support of city administration, then ultimately the council.
Thank you. And so this will be brought back to us next week for adoption.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. All right. Council, we're at the council portion, and we have one expense report to approve.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'd like to move that we approve the expense report for Councilman Jason Hoskins, who attended the National League of Cities.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Mandelbaum, supported by Councilman Frazier for the approval of the travel expense for Councilman Jason Hoskins to the National League of Cities, March 12th through the 16th of 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Madam Chair, I'm going to abstain from this vote.
Thank you. One abstention. Thank you. Council, this is our portion. It's your time to let the residents and anyone in the listening audience know if you have any news or anything that you'd like to share. And I'll start with you, Councilman Mandelbaum.
I knew you were going to do that. I just want to remind everyone that Parks and Rec this Friday is having their Springling event, and you can call to reserve a space at the Parks and Rec desk. The other thing I wanted to mention is the Southfield Police Department and the Southfield Fire Department are having a charity hockey game called Guns and Hoses on May 1st at 4 p.m. right here in the Southfield Ice Arena. You can purchase tickets through the police department. There's information on the city's Facebook page, as well as the Friends of the Southfield Police and Police and Fire Department pages, and anyone else you may know in Southfield as it's being promoted heavily. I actually purchased my ticket, or it's waiting for me already. I will be there, hopefully not laughing too hard at our officers and first responders. And I'm still not sure who I'm voting for, but it is a charity game, and the proceeds will be going to the Friends of the Southfield Police. So again, that's May 1st at 4 p.m. here in the Southfield Ice Arena, and tickets are $10 or $15 at the door if there are any left. I encourage everyone to attend. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hoskins?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have nothing to add this evening.
Thank you. Councilman Frazier?
Yes, I have a couple of things. One is an issue that we acted on earlier in the meeting tonight, and I intended to ask a question, and it got by me very quickly. And that is the Bridge Street Bridge, the maintenance on the Bridge Street Bridge. I didn't see anything in there that said anything about Lawrence Technology, and I know Dr. Nabil Grace was the key man to put that thing together. Are they going to be involved in it? I'm sure that they're tracking on what it costs, because the two spans were to show how much better the new technology was than the current technology. So I hope they're involved in this information.
The answer is yes, they will be. You cannot run into the doctor without him mentioning the bridge or the need to put a latex coating over it, and they do continue to monitor the bridge as well.
Okay. And the second item is I would like to have a closed session to hear what our attorney is working on.
Okay.
Not tonight.
Thank you.
If I may, we have a summary of the cases that are being handled either by my office or Michigan Municipal Risk Authority, so I have that prepared. So maybe in a couple of weeks or sometime in May, we could go into closed session, and I'll have a summary that I'll get to council beforehand.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Cruz?
I have nothing.
Thank you. Councilman Brightwell?
I have nothing, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Banks?
Thank you. I'd like to remind everyone that yard waste collection is beginning again this week. It will be on your designated trash collection day. Leaves, grass clippings, branches, brush, and organic material only can be put in the recyclable bags to be picked up. Also, it's springtime, so spring cleanup is around the corner. Remember, April 23rd, RASOC will be holding their Shred Day on Maple Ridge Drive in Southfield. It's from 9 a.m. until 2 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. I just have a couple of things I meant to mention at the beginning of the meeting, and I forgot to do so. Just making everyone aware that we lost a former councilman, John Lovejoy, so we'd like to send condolences to his family, for those of us who remember him. And also that this is the 54th anniversary of the Martin Luther King assassination. Today is. We need to remember that, and especially in light of what's going on in Ukraine and the state of the world that we're in today. It's just something that we need to keep our minds and stay aware of. Also, we have today is the kickoff for the National Library Week. Being a former library board member, just want to make sure everyone visits the library this week and take in some of the wonderful activities and things that we have at our library here in Southfield. And lastly, on May 2nd, we will be having at the Field Zone, Teen Mental Health Awareness. It will be a whole presentation done by the City of Southfield and others at the Field Zone, just talking about our teens and offering them help and letting everyone know how important it is, your mental health at an early age, so starting at our teens. And so if you can, it's a Sunday, please participate. It's at 2 o'clock on May 2nd at the Field Zone. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Yes, Councilman.
Yep, yeah. It's most, and realize I'd typically give out a veterans report, but tonight I did not prepare that report, but I do have an item in mind, and I understand that the cable department's been getting, calls about the presentation I made with respect to veterans benefit. And one item I know that is of interest, veterans can get their student loans waived by the VA, by the Veterans Administration. So, and there's a form you need to fill out. I do not have the title of that form tonight, but just in case there's someone in the listening audience or someone here knows a veteran, pass the word on to them that they can get their student loan either waived and or paid for if you were an active duty member, and it'd be based on the months of service that you have, and you will get that amount of money in return. So if you can reach me here, and I can give you the phone number. I can be reached at 248-796-5150. And I propose I will be bringing that particular item up every future meeting in the future, because that is a very costly item for veterans, and I know veterans have different things they need to deal with, and student loans are perhaps one of those that you should not have to deal with. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mayor?
Yes, good evening once again. Earlier today, I was contacted by Roberta Cotman. I'm sure you remember Ms. Cotman, who is our representative, citizen representative to the United Nations. She asked me if I would remind you that this Thursday, April 7th, is World Health Day. And it's commemorating the founding of the United Nations World Health Organization on April 7th, 1948. And the theme for this year is Health Promotion for Well-Being, Equity, and Sustainable Development. So that, I promised Ms. Cotman that I would let you all know that. Secondly, at your place, I just left an information article in today's Free Press about hookah lounges in a neighboring city. I just thought that was germane for all of you to be aware of. And then thirdly, I sent you an email on Friday regarding the Remember Them promotion that was done by Southfield resident Jane Roberts. Chief Barron and I had the occasion to speak at the opening of this exhibit at St. David's Church last summer. This is quite a project, and unfortunately a lot of people don't get to see it because it is on the lawn behind the church on 12 Mile. So we talked about possibly bringing this for a month or so to the city property, proposing with your approval that the memorial be placed between the library and Parks and Rec. There's a slight knoll just to the west of the circle in front of the library, kind of a raised area. And obviously, the book details all of the people who were murdered, really, through violence against people of color. So I didn't want to unilaterally make this decision, so I was hoping to have council feedback on would you entertain having this memorial in a more visible place on city center property for a month.
So you're looking for comments from us?
Yes, I am, Madam Chair.
Okay. Councilwoman Banks?
What does this memorial look like?
There are
It says
a
it's inner-
series of vinyl, they're this high, and they're on kind of like a lawn sign, except that they're rounded. They're white, a semblance of a tombstone, and the people that are commemorated in this book. So for instance, Cameron Prescott, I'm just opening, who was 6-year-old Hispanic Latino, was shot while playing in his room in Pecan Grove Mobile Home Park by Bexar County Sheriff's. Anyhow, his name would be on there and the date. So it's when I toured it, it reminded me a little bit of walking through the AIDS quilts. Just looking at these, it's very somber, but it's a remembrance of a life that is lost.
So it will be everyone in this book, like a tombstone that will be placed there?
Yeah, they're just stuck in the ground.
Stuck in the ground, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilman Mandelbaum?
Thank you. Would this be for a week, for a month? How long would?
I was proposing a month, and the church would bring the memorial here and take it back.
Would that, depending on the placement, would that interfere with other events going on the front lawn?
But that's why I'm recommending that mound, between the library and Parks and Rec, the receiving dock. You know where the circle is for the library?
Yeah.
Just to the west of that, there's an open space. It's not the front lawn, because there are events going to take place on the front lawn.
Okay.
But that is just green space, so that's why I was suggesting there. Plus, with people coming and going to Parks and Rec and the library, it would be visible.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Councilman Brightwell?
Now, what is this again?
Jane Roberts, Southfield resident, was moved by the events that have taken place in the last few years. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Freddie Gray, others, and decided that they should not be forgotten, that these are people we should remember. And they died at the hands of vigilantes like Trayvon Martin or overzealous police enforcement. When our police chief spoke at the church, he talked about the duty to intervene policy and the proactive steps that the city of Southfield is taking with training, body cameras, and the duty to intervene policy that hopefully something like this would never occur in the city of Southfield. I encourage you all, when you have the opportunity to go through the book. It's quite well done. They are vinyl. They're roughly this big. They're on metal stakes, like a lawn sign. And they're rounded at the top to look sort of like a tombstone. And it has the person's name that's profiled in this book and their dates.
Is your mic on?
I didn't make a date. I was waiting for, to share this with council first, and then I would discuss it with the church. Might be later this month, May.
Excuse me, Mr. Brightwell, would you turn your mic on?
The ground will be soft?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, I mean.
Okay, I kind of.
Yeah, weather permitting, obviously.
Right, okay.
It snowed today, so.
Okay, so we will get replicas of the individuals who are here? Will
Well,
all of them be at the same time?
Yeah, pending, again, I didn't want to make this decision on my own, so I'm asking if the council is supportive.
Okay,
And then I can go back to St. David's and talk to them.
Okay. Would all of them be placed at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, I'm in favor of this. Council, can we get a general everybody generally in favor?
I don't have a problem.
I'm in favor.
Okay. Okay, so is that what you need?
Wait a minute, where specifically will it be? I'm not even sure, what specifically will it be placed?
Once again, Councilman Brightwell.
It's Mandelbaum.
You know where the library is? There's a traffic circle in front of the library. To the west of that is open lawn, not in the front lawn.
Okay, where the pool is, the fountain?
No, it's there between this building and the library. There's an open green space, a mound, slight rise. I'm recommending it be placed there so it doesn't interfere with the front lawn.
Okay, I don't have a problem with it. I just missed something in the presentation. I wasn't quite clear what was going on, so I needed clarification, that's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anything else, Mayor?
No, that's it. So I will take this as your concurrence.
Yes, we're.
And then I will.
You on a motion?
No, do you?
Well, we have the consensus. If we come back with the dates,
Yeah.
it'll be more appropriate at that time to have a motion of the exact dates of the.
Okay, we can do that.
So now we just have a consensus to move. He'll have the conversation, come back with the dates for the actual tribute.
And Madam President, I'd like to suggest that we get this scanned and linked to the web and look at some type of QRP code, what we've done with our other items out front, just so there's more interaction for the public.
And to add to what our city administrator said, Mr. Mayor, if we can get, if the person responsible for that has a PDF, that would, instead of scanning it, that will make our life a little bit easier. I don't know if that's a PowerPoint available.
Yeah, I think we can do that.
Great.
Obviously, this was electronically conveyed and printed. All right, thank you very much. I'll proceed.
Okay, thank you. City Administrator?
Thank you, Madam President. While we were in the meeting, I took a look at our neighborhood handbook, the comments regarding sidewalk and maintenance and responsibilities. We'll beef that language up. I'd like to make some notes to also include the service lines between connection to our sewer and our water system, that those are also private functions. The language could use some beefing up. And then regarding the CIP, we will continue to look for funding. The present federal budget, although it's not been adopted, there is a renewed commitment for police activities. Although there have been a lot of divergence for the administration, in particular with the war in Ukraine. Some of us were hoping we were going to get a peace dividend and we'd be able to see more things go into domestic programs and social awareness. But I believe there are many in Washington that have not given up on this next part of the infrastructure bill. And there's lots of things in there that could be CIP eligible, and we will continue to work towards securing those monies when the opportunities come, whether it's, drug forfeiture, our revolving loan, or outside money. And when I look at some of these things, in particular, our fire, there are some who think that maybe the region needs to start having a different dialogue about a more regional approach. The level of firefighting service we provide here in Southfield with our paramedics, with over 15,000 runs, is a very high level. And I think some of our peers could benefit from having the same level. Many still have volunteer departments, or they have public safety officers. They don't enjoy the same level. And at a certain point, this region needs to start to have a very different dialogue about this, because it is correct. The condition, our firehouses, I tend to state that the boxes are tight and dry. There's water not coming in, but the average age being 44 years old, like a lot of our facilities, they need to be looked at. And if you'll recall in the OHM report, that was one of their recommendations, is that fire service be looked at independently. So I'll leave my comments at that and turn it over to City Attorney.
Okay, thank you. Madam Attorney?
Good evening. I have nothing further to add this evening. Have a good night.
Thank you. Madam Clerk?
Good evening, everyone. Just wanted to make a couple of announcements. Now, in the spirit of being more transparent and giving our residents, shareholders, more options now with the clerk's office, you actually can pay for birth and death certificates online as you upload your proper identification. So we rolled that out. We're working through a few kinks, naturally when you implement new software, but that is, we're online with the county and being able to do that. The county has been there a few years ahead of us, but now we're able to give our residents and the individuals that were born in this great city that opportunity. Furthermore, we've also have added more boards and commissions to our minutes on demand. So now all of our boards and commissions within the city of Southfield are currently on minutes on demand. We will be doing a press release shortly, because as a resident, you have the ability now to sign in on Minutes on Demand, check any type of board and commission, and whenever an agenda or minutes are available, you automatically get an email of that agenda and the minutes. So it's a great service to anyone that may be interested, even some of our boards, as we talked about it today. Let's just say our building authority, who doesn't meet often, if you have an interest in that, you check that box, and even if they meet once every 2 years, you will get that agenda of them doing it without even asking. It automatically, you automatically get that. And I signed up myself, and on Friday, as soon as we uploaded the agenda here for the city of Southfield, I got the email sent to my Gmail, so it works perfectly. If there's any changes to the agenda, if it's small changes, you'll get an update to all the information. I actually believe it's a great service to our citizens and anyone who just may be interested. All of the records that we have so far, I do want to thank Fred's office and Nicole, who's been working in conjunction with us, and my staff. It was a lot to put all of that information scanned in. Some of the paper we were scanning in was like tissue paper, but we really did that, and the software allows for character recognition. We're still a work in progress. Some of the boards and commissions, we're getting minutes daily from other departments, but I think it's a huge service to our city, and I think that it will be highly utilized. And lastly, I do want to talk, just in working with my fellow coworkers every day, everyone here is committed to excellence, And I don't think that anyone has a spirit of being sloppy or systematic. I do believe that everyone is committed to excellence, and I think that if it is indeed a typo or something, it's not reflective of anyone's work. It's just a slight mistake that we all make. So in an effort to make sure the employees' morale is up, I just ask council to be considerate that typos are not necessarily sloppy. It could just be a mistake, as council and the clerk's office and administration on an average, on a yearly basis, we submit about 4,000 documents. So if, let's just say 6 documents had a typo, that is still a great ratio. So just want to appreciate our employees, even if they make mistakes. It's not a reflective of them being sloppy, it's just a mistake. Thank you.
Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk? Madam Clerk? Excuse me. Just a question. Will you be bringing back the app, the voter app?
I will. We're transferring data, and all of you Android people caused me some issues. So we're working through some data inscription for the Android, so that we're looking to bring that back in June. But we had some issues with our Android users. Shame on you.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. Thank you. Anyone? Nope. Nobody from treasurer, planner, assessor. Everyone's gone. Anyone have anything else for the business tonight? Hearing none, I declare this meeting adjourned. Good night, everyone.